Welcome to another edition of Anthony T's Horror Show. I'm Anthony T. In this edition, I will be talking about the late Tony Todd, the late David Lynch, which I will be talking about in a second after I get done with the intro. And I also have a lot of news items I need to take care of. All that, plus in What's Anthony T Watching, I'm reviewing a film that is a robotic, romantic slasher film about a man who falls in love with a robot. What could go wrong? That I have thoughts on. But first, I want to get into why I've been, complacent lately with this podcast. I've been burnt out with everything lately. It's just, I haven't had time to do anything. When you get burnt out, you don't want to do anything, let's face it. So, I'm hoping this time I'm going to try to get episodes out every 3 weeks. Not at the rate that I've been getting episodes out recently, because I don't think it's fair to do that. If you're expecting a new episode and everything, and you don't see it. So, I'm going to try to get a new episode out every 3 weeks. See how that goes. Maybe that'll help with everything. So that is the new plan I have with this podcast. Every 3 weeks, hopefully. So why don't we start off with the news, as there's a lot of news I've got to get into. And why don't we start off with the late passing of David Lynch, who passed away in January. As this one really hit hard for me, because I was a major fan of this guy's work. A lot of his work was more surrealistic horror, so a lot of people might not know his work very well, except if you're a fan of Twin Peaks, you know him, definitely. Or if you followed his career from films like Wild at Heart, Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, and films like those, then you know who David Lynch is. He's also is a director that has done, I think, one of the weirdest films ever made. And it is a really good film, too, which I really highly recommend people should check out, too. It's Eraserhead. It does have that surrealistic, horror-like feel to it. It was, I believe, one of his earlier films, shot in black and white and everything. It really got the director on the map. It was a very good film, seriously. And one of the things I admire about David Lynch a lot was the fact that he wasn't going to cave into the studios. He was going to make his own film no matter what. Whether it was Wild at Heart, or Lost Highway, or Twin Peaks, you can see a lot of David Lynch's weirdness in footprint in each of those films. As every film of his had some sort of footprint to it. I can remember seeing his 3-hour weird psychological horror film, Inland Empire, where I heard people were saying, oh, it's really bad. I thought it was really good. It wasn't as bad as everybody made it out to be. It's just very weird. Had some very way out there moments. And this was a film that was made outside of the studio system. I don't believe he even shot that film on film, as I think that was one of the first films shot on digital video. Back when digital video was kind of new and everything, to my knowledge. I just admired what he did with that film. It felt like it had parts of Eraserhead in it, with the weird animation, plus these weird scenes where you feel like you're watching a film and you don't know what the hell you're watching, literally. It was a really good psychological type of film. And he does a great job with those type of psychological types of films. as they were mostly horror, whether it was Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which is another underrated film. Probably his most violent film, I think. Very brutal to watch, as it really gave you the backstory of the Twin Peaks TV series. That film, back in the day, was not met with any love, because first of all, Kyle MacLachlan had a small role in it, and one of the main things about Twin Peaks was Agent Cooper. You did see Agent Cooper in the film, but he was only there for maybe, 10, 15 minutes in that film. As that film was more about Laura Palmer and the days leading up to her death and the start of Twin Peaks, the TV series. But if I have to say, what is David Lynch's greatest masterpiece? It would be his last sort of film, as he would probably describe it as a film. A 16-hour film, nonetheless. Seriously. How can you do a 16-hour film? But it was released 16 hours on Showtime, 1 hour a week, with the exception of maybe the beginning and end of the series, where you had 2 episodes back to back. As Twin Peaks: The Return was just a great piece of television. Period. Every week was like must-see television. And it's kind of hard to do must-see television in this day and age of TV landscape. But David Lynch did that with Twin Peaks: The Return. As everything was great. The performances in that series were great. Kyle MacLachlan was great in 3 roles, which is amazing. All in itself, to have one actor perfect 3 roles. That series got snubbed. The only thing it got when it came to Emmy time was Best Actor for Kyle MacLachlan. David Lynch got no credit for this series. He should have gotten credit for this series. It should have been nominated for Best TV Miniseries. That was a great miniseries. But hardly anybody watched it. But still, it's going to be a gem 10 years down the line. I can guarantee you that. Twin Peaks: The Return. Or the 3rd season of Twin Peaks, as some people dub it. The ending kind of left you wanting more. Quite frankly. Seriously, it left you wanting more. But for me personally, I did not want to see another season of Twin Peaks after that. That is the perfect ending. And sadly, I don't think we are getting any more Twin Peaks because of the passing of David Lynch. Which is sad, because that guy is such a great director. He was such a great director that was literally passed by a lot of people. Because nobody got what David Lynch was doing. If you got what David Lynch was doing with his films, then you are a true fan of cinema. Because he is truly a dreamer. And that's what I really liked a lot about David Lynch's stuff. Because they all had like this dreamlike atmosphere. Now, as for my favorite films from him, definitely Twin Peaks: The Returns. Or the 3rd season of Twin Peaks. That's definitely one of my favorites from him. That, Mulholland Drive, Eraserhead, and even though it's not horror, Wild at Heart, but it's weird enough. So, definitely check out a lot of David Lynch's past work. I'd probably also throw in Lost Highway there too. It also has a killer soundtrack as well, with music from artists like the Smashing Pumpkins and Marilyn Manson and Lou Reed. That's also another good one, which I think a lot of people overlooked. I know that film got trashed a lot by a lot of people and critics. I liked it. It's very bizarre, but I liked it. It's just one of those films where people couldn't get what David Lynch was doing. Sometimes filmmakers don't construct simple narratives. Sometimes filmmakers make films like a piece of art that you would see in an art gallery. And David Lynch was one of those filmmakers that did that. And he did that perfectly with most of his films. And it is why most of his films still stand out today in his filmography. And truly will continue to stand out as the years go on. As he and I think David Cronenberg are like the only two directors that really use the horror genre as a true art form. You don't need slashers. You don't need zombies. You just need surrealism and psychological horror to get your films across. And David Lynch was one of those directors that did that perfectly. And it's truly sad that he passed away on January 16th of this year, because he was really one of my favorite directors. I know he was battling emphysema, which was going to make it even more difficult for him to do another film. But it was kind of sad to see him pass away from it, considering such a very talented director David Lynch was. Not only in the horror genre, but also in the history of cinema itself. Now at this time, I want to offer my condolences to the family and friends of David Lynch.
Welcome to Dark Discussions, your place for the discussion of horror film, fiction, and all that's fantastic. A weekly podcast where the discussion is about the most recent horror and genre films. Intelligent talk on a genre that deserves intelligence. A conversation between co-hosts discussing not only the film, but also the connotation that the directors and screenwriters are trying to articulate. When you want more than a review, listen to Dark Discussions.
And speaking of perception, there's just one more scene I want to talk about, which is after Caleb discovers that Kyoto's a robot. Kyoto kind of peels off her skin, showing him what's underneath.
Now, wait a minute. I know where you're going with this, but tell me you weren't already thinking this 15 minutes earlier in the film. Exactly what he's thinking at that moment.
Which is he's a robot too.
Oh, I considered the possibility.
Right, and that's what I like, is the fact that the writers were smart enough to know that this is what the audience would be thinking.
We've all seen Blade Runner.
Right, exactly.
www.darkdiscussions.com, wherever podcasts are found.
Welcome back. Now I'm going back to a unaired segment that was originally supposed to air in a November episode, but I had problems with my Rhode Island Comic-Con review, in which the audio was bad, that I had to scrap the episode completely. But I had to keep this file here because I really wanted to talk about Tony Todd. Now, the first 3 minutes is just the intro to that episode. Then I will talk about Tony Todd's passing as I get into that for about maybe 5 minutes in this little segment, as I decided either to rather play it as is or try to edit it out. And I came to the conclusion that it would be a lot easier just to play the segment as is, because it'd be a nightmare trying to edit it. So without further ado, this was supposed to be the original intro to the last November episode back last year, in which you would get my thoughts on Tony Todd and what era was supposed to be on that episode as well, as we truly lost a great talent in Tony Todd back in November, as it was sad to see him pass away at a young age. With that, here's the segment. Welcome to another edition of Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show. I'm Anthony T. In this edition, I will be talking about Rhode Island Comic-Con through and through. Next segment, I'll talk about the time I had there. Then the segment after that will be the complete review of the con, because I figured I'd divide both of those into 2 parts instead of having one super long segment, which would probably come out better if it's like 2 different segments. As I wanted to separate my experience at the con as the average con goer and what I did there from the actual review itself. Plus, I just don't feel like it would work well as one big segment too. So I figured I'd try to divide them both into 2 segments, as I really thought it would come out a lot better if I divide them both into segments of this podcast. Because if I wanted to do a long segment, I feel like it just gets tiring after a while, me talking for like 20 minutes on one topic. So I figured try to divide it up into 2 segments, which is easier. Have a little breathing room between segments. So that's that. And what's Anthony T watching this episode? I review a film that is dealing with the cocaine bear trend. Remember that film from last year? Now I have another film that I recently have had sit on my shelf or wherever for months. And I've been wanting to review this film for this podcast because literally how wackier you can get with the title cocaine in your film. Let's just say Cocaine Werewolf. That's right, I'm reviewing a film called Cocaine Werewolf. And that will be on What's Anthony T Watching. Then at the end of the podcast, I will have a major announcement about the future of this podcast. Don't worry, I'm not leaving. So we can get that out of the way. This podcast is staying, but it's going to go under another rebrand. Because every couple of years, I kind of like to rebrand things. And I'll give you my reasoning to why I wanted to rebrand this time around. It's a little more personal than the last time. So you got that. You got What's Anthony T Watching, my thoughts on Rhode Island Comic Con and everything. But first, I need to talk about a tragic thing that recently happened in the horror community. I really hate to start this episode off with some really sad news, as I kind of debated if I wanted to put this on last episode since I was near the end of production of that episode, or put it in this episode. But I decided to put it in this episode because I really want to spend some time on this, because this is a really big news story. And it's a sad one, seriously, that really kind of broke my heart a bit, seriously. And that it was the passing of Tony Todd, as on November 8th, news came out that Tony Todd passed away at the age of 69. There was no cause of death disclosed, but you could probably know something was going on with Tony Todd, because he was originally scheduled to be at CT Horror Fest this year and canceled, like early. Plus he was canceling his other convention commitments as well. So something had to be up, I think. You don't cancel months in advance, certainly if you're someone like Tony Todd, who's been one of those guys that has rarely canceled a convention appearance, because he's one of those guys that you would usually see on the convention circuit. He'll be at pretty much any horror convention. He'll be at pretty much any Comic-Con convention, because he was also on The Flash too, so he could have gone to any of those and probably would have been there if he was booked, because Tony Todd's one of those actors who probably could get out of things for a weekend and do a convention. If you're like using him in one of your low budget independent horror films, he could have that type of power where he can leave for a weekend to come back to production. Only a few people have that cred where they can do that in the horror business. But anyway, Tony Todd was a legend. And I met him a couple times. First back at ScareCon, New England, in 2017, where he was such a very nice guy to meet. He seemed very personable. I would meet him again 4 years later at Rhode Island Comic-Con. At that time, he brought his Candyman outfit with him. Of course, I had to do the Candyman photo op. He seemed to have fun doing the photo op. Very nice guy also there too. As that was a very good photo op and one of my favorite moments of that convention. He was one of those guys who loved to be at these conventions, loved to be meeting his fans. And that's what I like in people when I go to conventions. They want to be there. And Tony Todd seemed to be one of those guys who wanted to be at these conventions. As he also had a great personality, too, whenever he was on the big screen. As he tried to make any movie watchable every time he appeared on screen, which I like, seriously. And it was saddened when I found out he passed away. It was like early in the morning, November 9th, through text message. It kind of hit me a little bit, seriously, because I like Tony Todd as an actor. And I was just so shocked that he passed away at 69. Literally. He was going to be 70 this year. So, and the guy's a horror legend, people. He's been in such horror films as the Night of the Dead remake, which he was very good in. He was also very good in The Crow, in a supporting role. He was also good in Hatchet 2 as Reverend Zombie, as he brought a flair to that character, which made that character very enjoyable, even though the character was a bad guy, pretty much, as we found out in a later sequel, spoiler alert. He was also good in a supporting role in an indie horror film called Candy Corn, which is a very good film. I suggest people check that film out. Tony Todd was very good in that supporting role. But he's most known to horror fans as Candyman and as William Butterworth in the Final Destination films. But he's always good in making those roles that he's in very watchable. He's done some really good non-horror work as well in films and TV shows such as The Rock, Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, also 24, where he played two characters on that show. He's done it all, seriously. But it was the horror films that he was in, like Night of the Living Dead remake, the Hatchet films, Final Destination films, Candyman, that really defined Tony Todd's career and made him one of the legends of horror, and why he was loved by lots of horror fans alike. And he really is an actor that could do it all. And it's really sad that he passed away at the age of 69. No cause of death was given, so don't expect any speculation or any other news about it on this podcast. As now I want to offer my condolences to Tony Todd's family and a moment of silence as we truly lost a great in the horror genre and one of the legends of horror in Mr. Tony Todd. Every day there's a family struggling with hospital bills to care for their sick child who is fighting an illness. There's a woman who is fighting breast cancer and is having trouble making ends meet while paying for their treatment. And there are burn victims that are going through treatments to heal their deep wounds. There is a charity in the horror community that helps these people. Scares That Care is an organization that helps families deal with the bills for their child. They help women get the treatment they need to fight breast cancer, and they help people who are dealing with severe burns get the help they need to heal. Scares That Care is a 100% volunteer organization and 501c3 nonprofit charity that is dedicated to helping these people in fighting real monsters. To find out more information or to donate to Scares That Care, you can go to www.scaresthatcare.org. Every donation helps Scares That Care fight real monsters. Now, I have a lot of news to get to here. Seriously, I am so backed up with news, everyone. Literally. I recorded a lot of news, seriously, for this episode. But it looks like I'm not going to have time to get to all of it. Because I have one piece of news that takes up almost 9 minutes. And this is like a rant. So this is what I'm going to do. Next episode, I will get into news, as I have a lot of news that needs to be taken care of. I've already recorded some of it. But this news story deserves a segment on its own. Literally. Because we're not getting Saw 11 this year, or maybe never. And it all comes down to greed, everyone. Or producers fighting amongst themselves, to be exact. Bloody Disgusting recently had an exclusive article saying, "Is it game over for Saw 11? ? When I first saw that headline, I was saying, what the hell? Because literally, Saw 10 was a big hit. Why is Saw 11 possibly not happening now, or will not happen now? That kind of got me really confused when I found out about the news. Seriously, because literally, I was looking forward to this film this year. Seriously. I was so looking forward to Saw 11. I was interested in seeing where this story was going to go after the success of Saw 10. Because literally, I wanted another Saw movie after Saw 10. And that's been a while since the end of Saw 6 that I wanted another Saw movie. Badly. But it's not happening this year, or maybe never. It is all because of producers fighting amongst themselves, with one wanting to make Saw 11, which us fans want to see, while the other just kept putting roadblocks in the other producer's way, probably trying to sell the franchise to someone. I know you want to sell after 10 films, but still, it's a profitable franchise. I don't know why you would want to sell the franchise and have it rebooted. Seriously, it does not need to be rebooted at this moment. There are franchises that went way over that needed to be rebooted. This is not one of them right now. Maybe after Spiral's failure at the box office, that would have been a great time to reboot the franchise, but not now. Literally. This is not the time to reboot the franchise. Seriously. It's still on a high. I don't know what is going on between the producers of this franchise. Seriously. They are not on the same page, clearly. It's just evident that they are not on the same page. And you would literally think that Lionsgate would come riding to the rescue here. You know, the studio that had 2 major bombs last year in The Crow reboot and Borderlands. Both of those films did horribly at the box office. In fact, almost their entire slate did horribly last year. Maybe with the exception of 1 or 2 films, their entire slate was bad at the box office in terms of box office receipts. So, you would think Lionsgate would somehow get involved, bring these two people to the table, work the issues out. Right now, they can use their cash cow, the Saw franchise, to make money at the box office. But apparently to this bloody, disgusting report, when it said, but what about Lionsgate? And I quote from the article, surely the company that Saw helped build would have stepped in to steer its lucrative ship back on course. One of bloody disgusting sources at Lionsgate suggests they didn't have anyone to smooth things over. It's like Lionsgate, it's just clueless here. Seriously. This is your cash cow right now, Lionsgate. It went back up from the previous films. It's imperative you make this sequel. And you guys are just, yeah, whatever, we're good. We're good with The Crow failing at the box office. We're good with Borderlands tanking miserably at the box office. We're just good. We don't need to get into this producer's squabble. We really don't need our cash cow at this moment. Seriously, we just don't. Because this is what it felt like when I read that article about the Lionsgate pot. Because why, as a studio, you do not try and salvage this film? This is the film that will probably bring money to your studio. And yes, they already now filled that September date with The Strangers Chapter 2. Remember what happened with The Strangers Chapter 1 at the box office? That tanked last year. And this is supposed to be a 3-movie series. Why it got greenlit for 3 movies, I have no idea. Who in their right mind greenlit this for 3 movies? This isn't Lord of the Rings, everyone. It's just an average horror film series called The Strangers. It's not based on this great book that millions and millions of people read. It's just 2 mediocre films that they rebooted. And you gave that a 3-film commitment. And film 1 was such a disaster that it has taken almost a year when it comes out for Chapter 2 to come out in theaters, when it was supposed to come out every 6 months. Not like every year. But anyway, I don't get what is going on with Lionsgate. They're hedging their Halloween bets this year on The Strangers Chapter 2 instead of trying to salvage Saw 11. Why would you do that? Seriously. It's gonna blow up in their faces. The Strangers Chapter 1 blew up in their faces. This seems like it's unsavable. The whole Strangers franchise at Lionsgate. In fact, why did that franchise need to be remade? They're not iconic films. It was kind of too early to remake it anyway. Still, I just don't get Lionsgate. They rather waste their time on a trilogy of films that are probably not going to make any money at the box office instead of trying to save their cash cow in the Saw franchise. I just don't get Lionsgate sometimes, seriously. They love to hold films hostage. They can't make good decisions. What is it with this company? Seriously. Sooner or later, this company is going to go bankrupt. Or be forced to sell to someone else. Seriously. I just don't get Lionsgate sometimes. I just don't. They rather have producers fighting over each other than trying to save one of its most profitable franchises ever. I just don't get this company. I really don't. This company can be so profitable, but it keeps stepping on its own shoes. Enough with Saw X, as I got more news to talk about. If you want to find out the latest news for Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show, you can follow the podcast on the Slasher app, Facebook, and Instagram at Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling. You can also listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, DocDiscussions.com, and the Film Arcade Media YouTube channel at youtube.com/FilmArcadeMedia. What's Anthony T watching this episode? Well, I could have gone many directions here, seriously, because I also have to catch up on a lot of horror films that were released in the first quarter of this year, because I haven't had time to see any of them. Because I still haven't seen The Wolfman, that's a major horror film. I just saw Hot's Eyes. Thankfully, I did not go to the theater and see this film or spend time to review it, because it would have been a profanity-ticed rant on that film, because literally I thought I was gonna see a slasher film with Hot's Eyes, and it felt more like a rom-com with slasher elements in it. Literally. It was so bad. It is by far one of the worst films I've seen this year, if not the worst film I've seen in this young year. So, thankfully I did not decide to review Hot's Eyes, because you have probably heard me yell and scream about this film, and I don't want to yell and scream about films, seriously, especially going into it knowing that I thought I was getting a slasher film. The film had a cool mask, but the story, the script sucked. So did the acting in that film. So I decided to review a film with romantic elements that I missed during the first fourth of the year. I'm talking about Companion, because yes, in the beginning I talked about a guy falling in love with a robot, and I said what could go wrong, and yes, hopefully this is much better than Hot's Eyes, seriously, because I cannot take two really bad romantic horror films. It was just bad seeing Hot's Eyes, literally. Avoid that film at all costs. But anyway, getting back to Companion. This is a film I've been looking forward to, because it stars Jack Quaid, who horror fans know from Scream 5 and briefly in Scream 6. And Sophia Thatcher, who is one of the rising horror stars. So, this has a recipe to be a good film, where you have two up-and-coming talents in the film. So before I get into my review, like I always do, gotta go on imdb.com to read the plot synopsis. And the film synopsis is: a weekend getaway with friends at a remote cabin turns into chaos after it's revealed that one of the guests is not what they seem. What did I tell you? I'm reviewing a film where a guy falls in love with a robot. What do you think's gonna happen? Chaos. And the film is directed by Drew Hancock, who is most notably known for comedies. So, this is another comedy. Oh, this could be another comedy. No! I just got talking about Hot's Eyes. Well, at least I saw some humor in the trailer to Companion. So maybe it's good? Hopefully? Because I'm really hoping it's good. After the last time I had to sit through and watch Hot's Eyes, I really don't want this film to be bad. Is this film bad? Well, no, as I really enjoyed Companion a lot here. I really think this is a very good film. I was kind of surprised, seriously, considering the fact that, yes, it deals with AI in robots, which could sometimes hinder a movie. Plus, you have the Megan craze going on right now, so you're wondering why this film is being made? That's probably why, because Megan did so well. But anyway, I was really surprised that I liked this film a lot. And a lot of it has to do with the writing and directing of Drew Hancock. As I really did not think that this was going to be that great of a film. I thought it would probably be a good film, yes. But I didn't think I really would like this film a lot. Seriously. First, it's an early release. That's one thing. And second, it's being done by a guy who's literally done mostly comedies. So I did not expect what to expect with this film. Because I'm expecting more humor. Yes, this film has humor in it. But it doesn't overdo the humor in this film. Unlike Hot Size. Seriously. What I liked about Drew Hancock's screenplay was the fact that he really does a good job really setting the table up early by playing with your head. By literally giving you away the ending of this film at the beginning of this film. I'm not telling you what happens at the beginning, but he pretty much gives you the ending away in the beginning of this film. Something I don't like, literally. I'm one of those people that don't like directors or screenwriters that do that. But if you can get me there to a point where, okay, now I can see why you decided to go this route by giving away your ending at the beginning of the film, then I'm fine with it. And this film is a perfect example, as Companion does a very good job with that device. It does a great job also telling this story through the robot's point of view, as I literally thought this was going to be a straightforward film, not a film where it's just being told by the robot, literally. Once I started to think, oh, we're getting this film told by the robot. Oh, we're probably going to have this slasher film. How she just commentates on everything. And it might get annoying. But it doesn't. Because what this screenplay does is turns the tables on you. And it gives you a reason to why she's doing this. Seriously. I'm not giving you that shocking plot twist. But it is a very good plot twist. Seriously. I like the way that they handled everything. With the whole AI thing, the robot thing in the film. Also, the action in this film is good. The humor is also very good in this film, as it doesn't go over the top like Hot Size did. It does a good job complementing the horror. I like how there's a balance between the horror and the comedy in this film. That's usually a hard thing to do in a comedy horror, but this film does this very well. And it's really a credit to Drew Hancock's writing and directing, that this film is very good. Plus, this film has great performances from Jack Quaid and Sophia Thatcher, as both of those actors did a very good job with the way they portrayed their characters, the way they had great chemistry with each other in this film. They make the material in this film work so well. Everything is done in a way where you're just enjoying this film. I thought this is literally a fun film. Literally. I love the fact that it goes into more detail about both of those main characters. As I hop back on the screenplay a little bit, but those scenes definitely worked very well, especially the flashback scenes, both from a writing standpoint and an acting standpoint. Those were some, I think, the best scenes in this film. Along with the final third of this film was also very good as well. As everything worked very smoothly here. Everything worked very perfectly. It didn't feel like a Megan ripoff, which is very good. Because I did not want to see a Megan ripoff. Yeah, sure, it has the robot. But after that, it does not feel like a Megan ripoff, which is very good. Because You're probably going to start seeing some of those films right now. You got Megan 2 coming out later this year. If that does very well, like I think it's going to, then you'll probably see more Megan ripoffs. But I'd rather see more creative stuff here. Like Companion, for example. I don't mind if you're going to do another killer robot film. Try to be different. This film felt different from Megan in every way possible. And that's really a credit to Drew Hancock and his writing, as he set out to make a different type of killer robot film. As I don't think I've seen this type of killer robot film where there's a twist in the middle of the film. You know? And that's what I want to see. Creativity. I don't mind if you're going to do these knockoffs here, Hollywood. Just be creative and try to have some originality to them. I don't need to see 10 million Megans out on streaming. Seriously. As that's not good for the industry if you're having 10 million movies of one movie. And Companion does not feel like Megan, which is a great thing. Seriously. So, what am I saying here is, if you're going to try to copy something, try to be original and do your own take on that idea. Drew Hancock did a great job doing his own take on that idea of a killer robot. And I can't go into more of the specifics because it'll go into spoiler territory. But I like the twist that this film takes, which makes this killer robot film really good, quite frankly. Overall, this film has very good direction from Drew Hancock, a very good screenplay from him as well, great performances from Jack Quaid and Sophia Thatcher. Companion is definitely a great film. I would not be surprised if this film ends up on my top 10 list of 2025. It is just that great of a film. 5 stars. Couple of show notes. First, I know I have not put out episodes lately. It's been due to frustration on the production side and the fact that literally right now I have no way on doing interviews for this podcast. Seriously. Because what I used to do for interviews is use Skype. But I cannot use Skype anymore due to the fact that it's out of service, as Microsoft basically replaced it with Microsoft Teams. So I have no idea what I'm doing for interviews in the future. So that's been, I think, one of the reasons why I've been kind of down and been so stagnant with episodes. It's just the fact that I have not figured out how to do interviews. Because I want to do interviews. Seriously. Without interviews, to me, I don't know what the point of me doing a podcast is. At all. Literally. And I'm just being real here, people. I'm not trying to give you some excuse. It's just that it's been frustrating trying to figure out how to record interviews for future episodes. And yes, I know about Zoom, but they only give you X number of minutes before they cut you off. And you have to pay for it, which I'm probably going to either choose between that or Microsoft Teams, because, well, at some point, I'm just going to have to pay for it, literally, to continue all the interviews and all that fun stuff you like on this podcast. And trust me, I want to do interviews for this podcast, so I'm still trying to work that out. Next episode will not have an interview, obviously, but I'm going to try to get the next episode a lot quicker than what I've been doing this year, because literally it's almost June and I have not gotten through 6 episodes at least. So I'm planning on doing a quick turnaround for the next episode, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks the latest. But I can guarantee probably get this episode out by then. So look forward to that. Also, on the next episode, I'll go into news that I haven't been getting into because, well, I've been away for a bit. And I do have thoughts, which I already recorded and was going to use this episode, but the Saw rant pretty much took the whole segment. So, there's that. Then, I'll have more news to start off the episode, which would be more current news. I'll give you my thoughts on CT Horror Fest, which I attended earlier this month. But I figured this episode I'd get through all the stuff from the last couple of months, so I will get to that review next episode. I will also have a film review, probably something I picked up from CT Horror Fest, as I picked up a lot of films there, so I haven't decided which film I'm reviewing from that pile yet. With that, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube at youtube.com at Film Arcade Media. You can also find the podcast's official social media pages at Anthony T's Horror Show on Facebook, Instagram, and the Slasher app. With that, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. Have a good day. Support indie horror. This has been a Film Arcade Media production.